The day before my wedding, my husband surprised me with a $15,000 wedding dress, but my sister-in-law was upset because hers was only worth $2,500. On the big day, she called me laughing, saying, "I set your wedding dress on fire. Now go find a cheap one that suits your cheap personality." I couldn't help but laugh because the dress she burned was. My husband gave me a $15,000 wedding dress as a gift, but on our wedding day, his jealous mother secretly set it on fire. I was so shocked I fell to the ground. Aiden, my husband, jumped into action and put out the flames, saving me. But what happened after that was something she never saw coming. I planned the ultimate revenge. I can still remember the first time I met Aiden. It was like time slowed down, and everything else disappeared. All I could see was him. Aiden Gillen, a 30-year-old professional rugby player, was tall, charming, and had a smile that could brighten any room. But it wasn't just his looks that made me fall for him. It was the way he treated me. Aiden was kind, patient, and made me feel special in a way I'd never felt before. I was 29 at the time, working as an office assistant in Boston City. My life was simple and steady. I had a good job, close friends, and a loving family, but something always felt missing. That something turned out to be Aiden. We met at a friend's party. He was there with his rugby teammates, and I was hanging out with a couple of coworkers. From the moment we started talking, I felt this instant connection. We had so much in common: our love for adventure, trying new things, and even a shared belief in the importance of family. Aiden was everything I had dreamed of in a partner. Our relationship grew quickly, and soon we were inseparable. We talked about everything, including our future together. I had never been in a relationship where I felt so loved and appreciated. Aiden made me feel like I was the most important person in the world. Before long, we started talking about marriage. It felt like a dream coming true, and I couldn't wait for our wedding day. Aiden was everything I had ever wanted, and I thought nothing could ruin our happiness. But every relationship has its challenges, and ours came in the form of Miriam, his mother. Aiden had mentioned her a few times before. He spoke respectfully, but there was always a hint of tension when he talked about her. I didn't think much of it, at least not until I met her. I met her in person for the first time, Miriam Gillen. She was a woman in her early 60s with a commanding presence. She had sharp features, perfectly styled hair, and a cold demeanor that made me uneasy. The moment I saw her, I felt a strange chill. She wasn't outright rude, but there was something about her that felt distant, almost judgmental. She didn't make me feel welcome, and it bothered me. "I'm glad you could finally meet my mother, Taylor," Aiden said, trying to break the awkward silence during our lunch together. But Miriam barely looked at me when she replied, "Nice to meet you." Her tone was flat, and her eyes didn't stay on me for more than a few seconds. The air felt heavy with discomfort, but Aiden kept reassuring me, "Don't worry about her. She's just a little protective." I wanted to believe him, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with her. A few weeks after that tense meeting, Aiden surprised me with an incredible gift, a wedding dress. Not just any dress though. It was worth $15,000, a luxurious gown that sparkled and shimmered with every movement. When he gave it to me, I felt overwhelmed with joy. It wasn't just the price that made me happy, it was the thought behind it. Aiden knew how much I dreamed of wearing the perfect dress on my wedding day, and he made that dream come true. The moment I saw the dress, I gasped in disbelief. "Oh my gosh, Aiden, this is amazing." My hands trembled as I ran them over the delicate fabric. "I can't believe you did this for me." He smiled warmly and said, "You deserve it, Taylor. I want everything about our wedding to be perfect for you." But I had no idea that this dress would become more than just a symbol of love. It would bring out something darker. When Miriam found out about the dress, the tension between us grew even stronger. I expected her to be happy for us, but instead, her face went cold as stone when she heard how much Aiden had spent on it. "That dress is too much, Aiden," she said tightly, her voice filled with restraint. "You don't need to spoil her with such extravagant things." "Spoil me?" Her words left me stunned. I never thought of the dress as being about spoiling me. For me, it was about feeling special and loved. But Miriam didn't see it that way. Aiden, however, stood firm. "I don't care, Mom. Taylor deserves this. She's my fiancée, and I love her. This is my choice, and I'm standing by it." The more Miriam disapproved, the colder things felt between us. I didn't want to cause any problems, but the tension between us was impossible to ignore. I couldn't help but wonder, why was she so upset about a dress meant to bring me joy? Then came the wedding day. I walked into the venue wearing my $15,000 dress, and all eyes were on me. Guests admired how beautiful I looked, and I felt proud. With Aiden by my side, I was ready to start our new life together. As people came up to congratulate me, I happily shared the story behind the dress. "Aiden gave me this beautiful dress," I said, smiling brightly. The compliments poured in, and I truly felt like the luckiest woman in the world. But then, just as everything felt perfect, Miriam approached me. Her expression was hard to read. She gave me a tight hug and whispered in my ear, "Your time is over now." I froze, unsure of what she meant, but there was no time to think. Suddenly, I felt warmth on my back. Before I could react, I realized my dress was on fire. Screams filled the room, and I spun around in panic. Miriam stood nearby, holding a cigarette lighter, her face calm but with a cold smile. My heart raced as I tried to process what was happening. I looked around desperately for Aiden. He was across the room with some friends, but when he saw the flames, his eyes widened in horror. He pushed through the crowd and ran toward me. The fire spread quickly, burning the outer layers of the dress. Aiden reached me just in time and worked to put out the flames, using his jacket to smother them. The heat had seared through the fabric, leaving me with minor burns on my arms. My dress was ruined, but I was alive. "I'm fine, Aiden." "Really?" I said, trying to reassure him. Though inside, I was shaken to my core. I was in shock. What had just happened? How could Miriam do something so awful? The rest of the wedding felt like a blur. I changed into a simple dress, but the sense of betrayal stayed with me. Something was very wrong, but I didn't fully understand it yet. That night, when Aiden and I got home, I overheard him talking to his mother. Miriam was furious, and her words sent chills through me. She wasn't upset about the dress catching fire. No, she was angry that Aiden had put the fire out. I didn't want to see that expensive dress on her. Miriam shouted, "Why did you even buy her something so extravagant?" In that moment, everything clicked. Miriam's jealousy wasn't just about the dress. She didn't want me to have the spotlight. She didn't want Aiden to love me more than her. I had been so blinded by love that I hadn't seen it sooner. Her coldness, her passive-aggressive comments, it all made sense now. That night, as I lay in bed, I made a decision. I couldn't live like this anymore. I couldn't let her control our lives. Aiden loved me, but it felt like he was trapped in her grasp. I had to take control. That was when I decided to start my journey of taking back my power, though I knew it wouldn't be easy. This was just the beginning. The days after the wedding were a blur. I kept replaying everything in my mind. The fire, the ruined dress, Miriam's cruel words. It was hard to believe that someone who was supposed to be family could do something so terrible. Aiden, on the other hand, seemed to shrug it all off like it was no big deal. He acted like nothing had happened, and honestly, I didn't know how to feel about that. The tension between us grew. We tried to act normal, but I couldn't ignore the emotional scars Miriam had left behind. The burns on my arms were nothing compared to the hurt inside. Aiden tried to be supportive, but it felt like I was carrying all the emotional weight in our relationship. About a week after the wedding, we were sitting on the couch together. I could tell something was bothering him. He kept glancing nervously between me and his phone. Finally, he spoke up. "Taylor, we need to talk about something." My heart skipped a beat. I already had a feeling about what it was. "Is this about Miriam?" I asked. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Aiden, is this about Miriam?" He looked down at his hands, avoiding my eyes. "I've been thinking a lot about my mom and how she's been acting," he said quietly. "I know she's upset about the dress, and I just want you to understand, she's not used to sharing me with anyone. It's hard for her." A knot tightened in my stomach. Was he seriously defending her behavior? Could he not see how toxic his mother was? I stared at him, feeling a wave of frustration. "Aiden, it's not just about the dress," I said, my voice trembling. "It's about everything. The way she treats me, the way she makes me feel worthless. That's not normal." He finally looked at me, his expression soft. I know, and I'm sorry, I really am, but she's my mom. I can't just cut her off like that." "Why not?" I asked, my frustration spilling over. "She's been controlling you your entire life, and now she's trying to control our relationship. Why are you so afraid of hers?" Aiden flinched at my words. "I'm not scared, Taylor. She's been there for me my whole life. She's my family." Tears welled up in my eyes. "And what about me? Am I supposed to just accept her mistreatment because she's your family? Am I supposed to let her treat me like I don't matters?" He fell silent, his face conflicted. I knew he was trying to make sense of it all, but it wasn't enough. The more I thought about it, the more I felt like I was losing him to a woman who wouldn't even respect me as his partner. The next day, I overheard another conversation. This time, I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. It just happened. I was walking through the house when I heard Aiden and his mother talking in the living room. I froze when I heard Miriam's sharp, angry voice. "You really let her get to you, didn't you?" Miriam spat. "You let her ruin everything. That dress, that wedding. She doesn't belong in our family. She's just a distraction." Her words hit me like a slap to the face. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Miriam's jealousy ran so deep that she couldn't stand the sight of me with her son. And, Aiden, he didn't say a word. He didn't defend me. He didn't stand up for me. Mom, please, Aiden finally said, his voice strained. Stop. I'm trying to make this work. I love Taylor, and I love you. Miriam's tone turned icy. I've always been your priority, Aiden. And, if you really think she's the one for you, then why did you give her such an expensive dress? Why would you spoil her like that? I felt my heart sink. It was clear to me now, this wasn't just about a dress or a wedding. Miriam didn't want me in her family, and Aiden didn't know how to choose between us. A surge of anger rushed through me, and I couldn't hold it back. I walked into the living room, my face flushed with emotion. Why do you care so much about a dress? I demanded, my voice trembling with frustration. Why does it bother you that Aiden loves me? Why are you trying to ruin everything between us? Miriam turned to me, her expression cold and full of disdain. Because you're a distraction, Taylor. A beautiful, expensive distraction. But you'll never truly be part of this family. Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. How could she say that? How could she treat me like I didn't matter? Aiden, we need to talk, I said, my voice shaking. I can't keep living like this. I can't keep pretending that everything's okay when it's not. But, Aiden just looked at me, torn and helpless. Taylor, please, I'm trying. You don't understand. This is hard for me. I shook my head, feeling the weight of his words. It's hard for you? I thought bitterly. What about me? I couldn't listen anymore. I needed to get away from him, from Miriam, from all of it. That night, I went to my parents' house, feeling like my whole world was falling apart. I sat in my old bedroom, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. It wasn't just about Miriam anymore. It was about Aiden too. I was starting to see the truth. I couldn't be happy with someone who wouldn't stand up for me. I felt like a stranger in my own relationship. That's when I made my decision. I couldn't live this way anymore. I needed to get away from Miriam, from Aiden, and from all the manipulation and control. I decided I needed a divorce, but it wasn't just about leaving. I couldn't walk away without confronting the truth about what Miriam had done. I couldn't let her get away with it. I needed to fight back. It wasn't an easy choice. Deciding to divorce Aiden felt like a heavy weight had been lifted, but it also terrified me. I loved him, truly loved him, but I couldn't ignore the reality anymore. Miriam wasn't just controlling. She was toxic. She had no respect for me, and no matter how much Aiden claimed to love me, he would always choose her over me. The way he couldn't stand up to her, the way he let her destroy our relationship, it was something I couldn't ignore anymore. I deserved better, and now, I was ready to fight for myself. I spent the next few days in my parents' house, trying to process everything. I felt like I was walking through a thick fog, unable to see clearly. I couldn't stop thinking about the wedding, the fire, and Miriam's cold, calculated words. Her voice echoed in my mind, and every time I replayed the scene, my heart sank all over again. One night, as I lay in bed, an idea came to me. I needed proof. Something Aiden couldn't deny, something that would force him to see who his mother really was. The next morning, I grabbed my phone and started going through the footage from the wedding. I had recorded everything, thinking it would be a beautiful memory to look back on, but now, I wasn't sure if I'd ever want to revisit those moments again. As I skimmed through the video, my stomach churned. Then I saw it. In the moment, Miriam hugged me, whispering those chilling words in my ear. Her hand moved toward her pocket. She pulled out a cigarette lighter. My breath caught in my throat. I hadn't noticed it during the chaos, but there it was, clear as day. Miriam had deliberately set my dress on fire. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, unable to believe it. How could she do this? Why would she do this? But as I thought about it, the truth became clearer. This wasn't just jealousy. Miriam was terrified of losing her control over Aiden. She was willing to do anything, even ruin our lives, to keep her grip on him. With the video as proof, I knew I had to act. I couldn't let her get away with this. I called the police. It wasn't a decision I made lightly, but I didn't have another choice. She had risked my safety, destroyed the most important day of my life, and manipulated Aiden for far too long. It had to stop. The police took my report seriously, and an investigation was launched. It didn't take long for them to gather enough evidence to arrest Miriam. When I got the call telling me she had been taken into custody, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, because she was finally being held accountable, and anger, because she had taken so much for me. This wasn't just about the dress or the fire. It was about everything she had done to try to break me. But now, I was finally taking back control of my life. I knew Miriam was finally going to face the consequences for everything she had done to me and Aiden, but I couldn't help feeling angry too. Angry about the pain she caused and the way Aiden let her actions go unchecked. When Aiden found out about her arrest, he was furious. He called me, shouting and accusing me of ruining his family, but I didn't care anymore. I had tried to be patient, tried to make things work, but I had given him every chance to stand up for me, and he hadn't. In my eyes, he was just as responsible as Miriam. "I can't believe you do this to me," Aiden yelled, his voice trembling with rage. "She's my mother, Taylor. She's the only family I have left." "Well, I was your family too," I said, my voice steady but firm. "But I wasn't enough for you, was I? You chose her over me, and you always will." There was silence on the other end of the line. I could hear his heavy breathing, filled with frustration and disbelief. Finally, he spoke again, his voice quieter this time. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I replied calmly. "I'm done, Aiden. I can't live like this anymore." And with that, I hung up. I knew it was over. My marriage was over. But instead of feeling broken, I felt free. Free from Miriam, free from Aiden, and free from all the manipulation and control that had held me down for so long. The police eventually charged Miriam with multiple offenses, including endangering my safety. She was sentenced to a long prison term. When I heard the news, I felt a strange sense of justice. I had taken a stand, fought back, and won. But the real victory wasn't her punishment. It was reclaiming my life. I promised myself that I would never let anyone, not even family, control my happiness again. After everything that had happened, I finally felt like I could breathe again. The chaos, the heartbreak, the fire, it was all behind me. For the first time in months, a sense of peace settled over me. But I knew that the hardest part was still ahead. Moving on. Rebuilding my life started slowly. I spent the first few weeks focusing on myself, something I hadn't done in years. My life had always revolved around others, Aiden, his family, and trying to keep everyone happy. But now, it was about me. I began reconnecting with old friends I hadn't seen in ages. I spent more time with my own family, the people who truly loved and supported me. For the first time in a long while, I found joy in simply being alone. Piece by piece, I started to rebuild, and with each step, I felt a little stronger. I truly felt strong when I looked at who I had become. I had been through so much, yet here I was, standing tall. I had fought for myself and won. It was a power I had never felt before. I thought my story was over, but then something unexpected happened. A few months had passed since Miriam's arrest. Aiden and I hadn't spoken since that last phone call. I thought he might be angry or try to contact me, but he didn't. Then, one afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. My heart skipped a beat when I realized it was Aiden. I hesitated before answering, unsure if I was ready for this conversation. "Taylor," he said softly. His voice sounded tired. "I've been thinking about everything, and I know you probably won't forgive me, but I need to apologize. I didn't see it back then, but I see it now. I was blind to what my mom was doing. I should have stood up for you. I'm sorry." I didn't know how to respond. My heart felt torn. Part of me wanted to yell at him for everything he had put me through, but another part of me just wanted closure. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Aiden," I said, my voice steady but full of emotion. "You had so many chances, and you chose your mom over me every single time. I'm not going to let that happen again. I've moved on." There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing on the other end, like he was trying to find the right words. "I understand," he said quietly. "I just want you to know that I've changed. I see now how wrong I was. I'm sorry for everything." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of his apology, but deep down, I knew it wasn't enough. He had failed me when I needed him most, and now I was stronger because of it. "Goodbye, Aiden," I said firmly, my voice calm and sure. "Take care of yourself." And just like that, it was over. The final chapter of that part of my life was closed. I had freed myself from the man I once thought I would spend my life with, from the family that never accepted me, and from a life that had been holding me back. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and that was enough. I wasn't going to let anyone control my life again. Not Miriam, not anyone. For all her manipulation, she never understood the strength of a woman who was ready to fight for herself. As time went on, I focused on my own happiness. I poured my energy into my career, into finding peace within myself, and into doing the things that truly brought me joy. I had learned how important it was to stand up for myself, to never let someone else's jealousy or control define who I was. Then, about a year later, I got news that changed everything. I was pregnant. It was unexpected, but it filled me with a happiness I had never known. I was going to be a mother. I was determined to raise my child in a world where love, respect, and happiness came first. I still remember the day I told my parents. My mom's face lit up with joy when she heard the news, and I could see the pride in her eyes. She knew everything I had been through and how far I had come. I had taken back my life, and I was finally building a future on my own terms. As I sat with my family and the man who had become my true partner, Someone who respected me and loved me for who I was. I knew I had made the right choices. My past would always be a part of my story, but it didn't define me anymore. I was free. I had won my battle, and I was living the life I had always dreamed of.